Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another LOR video today. So I've been posting a lot of gameplay about me getting ready for Ranked Eternal Ladder. It is unlocking in about the second week of June. It's rapidly approaching because we're nearing the end of May already. But I wanted to do a discussion video because I've been posting tons of gameplay, and I think everyone's kind of got a sense of the lineup of decks that I think are pretty good right now. It is things like my version of Anti-Jin, my version of Azir Aurelia, my version of Jace Lux, and even if I just played like these three decks in like rotation for ladder, with nothing else, I would be pretty much in an amazing spot. Just playing those three decks: Jace Lux for control, Anti-Jin for burn aggro, and then Azir Aurelia for combo, like rally combo potential. And these three decks would make it exceptionally difficult for anyone to consistently beat me out with any, predetermined matchups. Basically both of these decks, Anti-Jin and Azir Aurelia, having good matchups, or at least decent matchups into Eddie, which Eddie will be everywhere when ladder comes up. They'll have decent matchups into other aggro decks. And in the instance where I have to deal with a lot of like mid-range threats or aggressive decks, then I can basically play my version of Jace Lux and win those matchups 100% of the time. So it's just like, okay, you play Eddie, I can run one of these. You play aggro, I run this. You play mid-range, Azir Aurelia is kind of hard to deal with, and it's like this triangle of like, okay, you can't stop all three. You can't jam a ton of healing, jam a ton of chumpers to deal with Azir Aurelia, and deal with control all at the same time. You kind of have to pick a lane, and that's kind of what makes this is like my patented 3-deck climbing technique. In case you're curious, is typically I pick like 3 top decks, and then I run it out, and I early on in the laddering process I vary between the 3 lists, and then for the last part of the grind, like Diamond to Masters, I just pick the one deck that I think is doing best, and then I just ride that out the rest of the way. Because that's what's going to happen, is that, as you start running into the more serious players on Eternal Ladder, they're going to be running their best deck, so I have to run my best deck, and like that sort of thing. But the purpose of this video, the reason why I wanted to make this video, was to talk about champs I don't play, and the reason why I don't play them. So my least played champ in the game is Mordekaiser. A lot of that has to do with the fact that Mordekaiser is one of the few champions in the game that doesn't get better when he levels. Basically, if you don't know, he basically says that for the rest of the game, when you slay a unit, drain 1 from the enemy nexus. So that would be really cool if that effect didn't like exist on a normal card in Green Glade Duo. It's not Green Glade Duo. Caretaker? No. In Shadow Isles, we'll just search it manually, but yeah, Everglade Collector, sorry. Everglade Collector basically says whenever another ally dies, drain 1 from the enemy nexus. So he's 5 mana versus 7 mana. He doesn't have to level up, and he does exactly what Mordekaiser does when he's leveled. So like, he's just a universally better card than Mordekaiser when he's leveled. So why is Mordekaiser appealing to people? Because he is not a bad card. I'm not saying that Mordekaiser is a bad card. I'm saying that he is a bad card if you're playing for his level up, which no one does. Basically, what people do is they just play him for his normal text, which says, kill up to 2 allies, whenever you slay another unit, revive it. So he's just like an infinite revival engine for units with summon effects. And for that reason, because there's no incentive to level him, I basically have zero interest in playing him, because that's just the kind of, I'm a high synergy player, I turbo level ups, I like cards that level and do interesting things. For that reason, I'm not a big fan of Mordekaiser. But again, what he does is very unique, right? You take Stinky Dragon, Erastin, and you play Mordekaiser on him, and maybe you ramp out Erastin somehow, and then you jam the Mordekaiser, and now you have 2 Erastins. Like, that's, you'll actually have 3 Erastins. That's kind of cool, right? You just infinite Stinky Dragons with Mordekaiser. The other thing Mordekaiser does really well is he can mill, so he can be like a mill condition. In Vandal City, so you could do like Vandal City Mill. Aloof Travelers, right? So you play Mordekaiser on Aloof Travelers, and then you just infinitely mill the big cards out of the opponent's hand and out of the opponent's deck. And so Mordekaiser could be a mill cards. So like Mordekaiser is super flexible. Like any summoning effect that exists in the game, Mordekaiser can duplicate that summoning effect. And when it comes to death rattle effects as well, so it's like summon effects and death rattle effects. And he's just a big boy that comes down on 7, and you know your board's going to be 6 wide, and the opponent can't get through it, which is very good in standard. In standard, there's less Nexus interaction and less ways to OTK the opponent, things like that. But like I said, it just comes down to the fact that Mordekaiser doesn't do anything when he's leveled. And that means that I have zero interest in this champion. So I don't build Mordekaiser decks. Every time that I try, like I get like 70% of the way there, and I'm just like, wait, why am I doing this when I could be playing anything else? So I'm not saying that Mordekaiser is a bad card. I'm saying he's a good card if you like non-committal decks and non-committal plays and things like that. But if you're like a turbo leveler, there's nothing to turbo level here because the level up does nothing. It doesn't help you win in terms of what Mordekaiser is attempting to do. Other champions that I don't play very often. Tristana gets played very little. You know, even in Bandletree, which is like Tristana's deck, Tristana doesn't get played. I believe the one deck that ran Tristana like most recently was like Atrocity Tristana, and what you do is you run it in Shadow Isles, you make Tristana massive, and then you just throw her at the opponent's Nexus. It's like a 10 damage little Yordle in a cannon, more or less. That's okay. I think if you still wanted to do that, like Atrocity Tristana, that'd probably be alright. But Atrocity decks have fallen off in a big way as well, so it's not as common to see Atrocity decks anymore. It's just slow. It's very slow in terms of Eternal. Eternal is increasingly becoming a faster and faster format. Just like Modern and MTG, every single time a new set gets released, Eternal gets faster. Everything is turbo. Just like turbo, turbo, turbo all the time. Turbo level ups, turbo OTK, turbo combos, turbo burn, you know, turbo auction in like a mid-range shell. Just like everything's turbo. Turbo into Eddie. Not Eddie specifically, but the 6-drops that you play with Eddie, because Eddie never comes down. Everything's very fast in Eternal. Other cards that I haven't played much recently, Heimer. I think Heimer's a really cool card. I think he's one of the most unique champions in LOR history. But outside of like Jace Heimer, which is like Shadow Isles Heimer, which I think is kind of just inferior, in my opinion, to Jace Lux, especially my version of Jace Lux, it's very hard to essentially have a reason to play Heimer anymore. I think he's progressively getting kind of worse with the more sets that get released. He's basically just a chumper generator, right? And I've already talked about how the better you get at Eternal, the fewer chumpers you will run overall, because you will realize that the straightest line to victory is usually the correct one in this format. And also you have like, you know, new good mid-range cards like Vex and Shadow Isles and stuff like that. Like, you know, it's very possible you'd rather be on like Vex Jace now instead of Heimer Jace. It's very possible. Thresh, you know, Thresh Nasus is still considered one of the top decks in Eternal. I think that's pretty okay overall. I think that Thresh does one thing and one thing well, which is tutor out your champions. It's a very unique effect, similar to Heimer. I just don't play a lot of Thresh. But I think Thresh is a good card. Like, he's kind of the opposite of Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser is like a big challenger Shadow Isles dude that does his thing the minute he gets played. And Thresh is, you know, a big challenger dude that does nothing until he's leveled. I think that Thresh is the more interesting card out of the two. But that's just how I play the game personally. Other cards that I don't play in terms of like champions. Master Yi. I'm a terrible Master Yi player. I think Master Yi is a really cool card. He's very similar to a lot of the other cards I've talked about, where he doesn't really do anything until he's leveled, but the thing that he does when he's leveled is awesome. But it's progressively been challenging for people to find like a route to victory with Master Yi. He even got buffed. He went from 3 mana, which was ridiculous, and now he's 2 mana. And even as a 2-mana champion in Ionia, and traditionally 2-mana champs have been amazing in LOR, he is like the worst 2-mana champ. It's kind of amazing. He might be better than Ahiri, but like that's a low bar, right? Like if he's better than Ahiri, then it's a pretty low bar. Other champions that I don't play much, Aphelios. I'm really bad with Aphelios. I'm bad with like infinite stall decks in general that aren't Rise. Rise I'm quite decent at, but stuff like Victor Aphelios, I'm just like, what am I doing? It's just like I'm very confused about what I'm supposed to be doing most of the time in Victor Aphelios. And usually the answer is you're not supposed to be doing anything, you're just supposed to be answering what the opponent's doing, which as a proactive high synergy player or a turbo level player, I'm very bad at that. Zillion, right? I haven't played much Zillion lately, but you know, time bombs are awesome. I think again, Zillion is one of the best designed champs in the game. Period, full stop. So again, I haven't played much Zillion lately. Seraphine, I don't play a lot of Seraphine because Seraphine operates in a very similar wavelength to Aphelios, which is just stall, RNG into your win con, or not even really have a win con, but just, you know, essentially remove and answer everything your opponent's doing. Which I think is fine. Like, I think if you want to play, like, P and Z Noxus with, like, Phlox and Disintegrates, like, I think that's great. Go nuts. But yeah, you know, there's a ton of champs in this game. I gotta be honest. Like, I haven't played much Soraka Tahm Kench recently, but I think Soraka Tahm Kench is a really cool deck. I haven't played much Yuumi lately. I haven't played much Bard. So many cool champions in this game that probably get underplayed. Jack. I haven't played much Jack lately. But, you know, again, the competition is very high in Eternal in terms of, like, what a card needs to do and is supposed to do. So it can be tough to you know, essentially rationalize running some of these decks if they're not competitive, right? But yeah, this is Eternal King signing out. Just a short video today talking about the champs that I, you know, have been underplayed by me, underbrewed as well. Another one that I like a lot is actually Volibear. God, I haven't seen... Volibear used to be everywhere. Like, it was just like Volibear level with his, you know, impressive claw animation, and like that was nuts. Like, I loved Volibear on release, but like increasingly he feels so slow. You know, if there are just like 6-drops that do the same thing as Volibear does, but they have the Eddy proc, right? And even if they don't do the exact same thing Volibear does, which is like ping 3 things for 4 damage, the fact that they come down on 6 and they ping one thing, like they can ping one thing for 2 damage, or they can capture a thing, or they can remove keywords on 2 things. Like 6-drops are so versatile. Some of them draw cards. Like there's just so many different kinds of 6-drops. That Volibear increasingly feels slow, but I love Volley. I would love to see a Volley level again. I would love to see a Volley just get played, period, full stop, but love the card design. Alright, this is Eternal King, signing out.